The losing streak unfortunately continues for the Louisville men's basketball team as they were handed a defeat to the Pittsburgh Panthers on the road on Saturday afternoon. We'll talk about that contest and more on this episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Stay tuned.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into another week of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode is brought to you by Sonos. Experience the game like never before with Sonos Arc, the premium smart soundbar for TV, movies, music, gaming, and more. Visit Sonos.com to learn more. I want to say thank you for making us your first listen of the day. And just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. It was an up and down weekend for the Louisville basketball programs. The men's basketball team, unfortunately, continues their skid throughout ACC plays. They've lost their third straight now. The most recent one coming on Saturday to the Pittsburgh Panthers on the road, 65-53. Perhaps one of the Cards' worst performances yet. We'll break down that performance and talk key takeaways. But we will then transition into the positive segment of the show. The women's basketball team continues their win streak. It is now up to 15 as they handled the Boston College Eagles 63-53 on Sunday afternoon. We'll break that contest down as well. And then finally, like we do every Monday, the Mailbag Monday segment will serve as the caboose of the show. I was going to use some type of a witty little saying there, but nothing really popped into my head. But before we get into the content of today's show, like I mentioned, for those who are not aware of who I am, my name is Dalton Pence. I'm a credentialed media member for Cardinals Sports Zone, where I serve as both a football beat writer and a recruiting analyst. Also do some PA announcing work for the university in various sports. You can follow my personal Twitter in the graphic in the bottom left hand of your screen, and the podcast Twitter page is at LO_Louisville. So let's get right on into the show. Starting out talking about the Louisville Cardinals men's basketball team's skid that has continued with a loss to the Pittsburgh Panthers, 65-53 up in Pennsylvania on Saturday afternoon. This was, for lack of better terms, an uninspiring performance from the Cards. I came into this matchup. Unfortunately, we didn't have a preview segment due to some issues with. I had some car issues that my laptop was stuck in my car, couldn't get into the trunk of my car. But regardless, long story short, I wasn't able to record on last Thursday or Friday, so didn't really have a Pittsburgh preview. But one of the concerns that I had coming into that matchup was that, with Louisville kind of, slumping in a bit, I was worried about this one because Pittsburgh played the Cardinals tough the first time around, was basically the last possession from sending the game into overtime. And this was, what transpired was what I feared would happen. Looking at what the Cards did from the field, like I said, uninspiring is kind of where I go to. Pittsburgh shot about 44% from the field. Louisville shot just 33%, 25% from three. They got out-rebounded by 9, 18 fouls to Pittsburgh's 11. They actually had less turnovers than Pittsburgh. It felt like the Panthers pretty much had the lead for the majority of the game, and every time Louisville would start to try to, mount a comeback, Pittsburgh was pushing the deficit further and further, and I felt like it was kind of a comfortable 10, 12, 14-point deficit throughout the latter half of the second half in Saturday's contest. Louisville's largest lead was 5. Pretty sure that was early on in the game when it was 8-3 in the opening minutes, and unfortunately, things kind of turned into a debacle after that. Malik Williams led the way for the Cardinals. Only shot 4 for 11 from the field for 12 points and 13 rebounds. L. Ellis and Noah Locke both had 10 points. Outside of that, only 3 other players scored. Jared West and Dre Davis both had 9. Sam Williamson had 3. They got no other contributions from any other players. Sidney Curry, worth noting that he was a late scratch due to rolling an ankle. I believe Jeremy Wallman said that it came on the day of the game in the pregame shoot around or something, but or the practice the day before. But Sydney was not able to go after having a career day against the NC State Wolfpack the Wednesday before. And like I said, I think this loss for the Cards just kind of, I feel like we're beating a drum, so to speak, beating a dead horse, and we're kind of the offensive struggles continue. I think that the defense has gotten a little bit more lackadaisical as as the season's gone on. When you look at what Pittsburgh did to the Cardinals on Saturday, John Hughley led the way with 19.7 rebounds. Leek Williams really struggled to guard him in the paint. That's where Sidney Curry, a bigger body defender like Curry, really was missed in this game. Roosevelt Wheeler, not necessarily much of a factor either. He only played 6 minutes, did not attempt a shot, did not grab a rebound, only had 1 block and 1 personal foul. They did not have Horton. Sorry, I have to sneeze. Excuse me. They didn't have Horton, who shot pretty well in the first matchup, had hit 3 threes. I think he had 13 points overall for the Panthers in the very first matchup between the two teams just a couple weeks ago. But, despite being, outmanned, Jamarius Burton led the way with 20 points, 8 rebounds. Gay, Adukule, both had 10 respectively. And like we saw from the first match, not much bench production for the Pittsburgh Panthers. Only 3 points from the bench. Collier had 2 points and Jeffries had a point. So, 62 points came from the starting 5, and one of them didn't even necessarily have, that great of a game. He only had 3 points. But anyway, this makes things a little bit more troubling for the team. Number one, you're kind of taking some steps back. You're regressing from some of the progress that you showed at the very end of December through the Florida State loss, and even the Florida State loss. There were some positives to take away from that. I'm not like I said, I'm not one to really believe in moral victories or anything like that. I call a spade a spade. A win is a win. A loss is a loss. Louisville lost to Florida State, but there were instances where I felt like they did some good things. Offensively, they were pretty solid in the first half. They had 40 points in the first half. The unfortunate thing about it was Florida State had 50. I liked what I saw from some of the newcomers like Mason Faulkner, L. Ellis, Sidney Curry started playing very well, too. So, but that can't be said about this matchup. Like I when I watched the Pittsburgh game, I can't really take any positive away. I just felt like it was a lackluster performance on both ends of the court. Offensively, this was granted maybe the Cardinals' worst offensive outing of the season, in my opinion. Shot the ball less than 34% from the field. The three-point shooting struggled as well. NC State was kind of one of those things to where outside of Sidney Curry, you don't see a lot of positives to take away, and that's kind of a concerning thing because now, you were 4-0 in the conference, but Louisville currently at the moment is 10-7, 4-3 in the conference, and they're in a danger zone. We're going to talk. There's a question that directly pertains to Louisville in the NCAA tournament, but Louisville's in a very, very tough situation now to where they are squarely on the outside looking in, and they're going to have to put together an extremely incredible stretch, to end the month of January and throughout February to really even be in consideration for the NCAA tournament. So you have to take that, with a grain of salt. And, I know it's a new team, new faces, but in January, we really haven't seen many signs of clicking. Jeremy Wallman on the Cardinal Sports Zone podcast alluded to there being some, maybe some internal issues and stuff like that. That's not the episode. This isn't the podcast for that, especially, with the time limit and stuff like that. If you want to check that out, it's great material at cardinalsportszone.com. But I do want to take this time now to transition into the more positive segment of this show with the Louisville women's basketball team continuing their 15-game win or extending their winning streak to 15 and continuing their win streak early on in ACC play. We'll do that after we talk about our friends at Built Bar. It's the New Year, so that means New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. It's the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar and makes it easier to stick to your resolution. Look, you want to eat healthy, Sometimes it gets boring, though. By like week 3, which, I think we're in week 3 now, you might be thinking, this just isn't it. It's not worth it. Where's the chocolate? Well, Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, and you get healthy benefits like 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, 17 grams of protein, which is leaps and bounds better than a candy bar. Even if you're not a huge fan of working out, you can at least eat something that tastes good and it's good for you. That way, when you enjoy a delicious Built Bar, you can almost count it as a workout. Do yourself a favor, go to Built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off your first order. Once again, that's use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. I want to take this time once again to thank you personally for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast, free on all streaming services, including YouTube, 5 days a week, your team every day. The Louisville women's basketball team on Sunday afternoon up in Boston defeated the Boston College Eagles 63-53. Now the Jeff Walls' team 15-1 on the season, winners of their past 15 after dropping the season opening game to Arizona, and they are now 5-0 in conference play. So basically this matchup, the Cardinals beat the Eagles by 30 earlier in the year at the KFC Center I feel like it was just a couple weeks ago, maybe. But I think it was in December, to be honest with you. One of the two. It was something like that. It was early. Obviously, they played them. It was 79-49. Right now, this was a matchup to where the Cards kind of struggled in the first half, and even when they did get the lead, it wasn't necessarily a comfortable one because Boston College continued to linger around. Boston College held a 20-10 first quarter advantage, kind of that the ugly trend rearing its head of the Cardinals kind of struggling in the opening quarter, but it was followed up by a seismic 22-5 point differential in the second quarter that gave the Cards a halftime lead, and the team never looked back. They outscored the Eagles in both of the next 2 quarters to win the game comfortably 63-53. Overall, it was the Kiana Smith and Haley Van Lith show on offense. The only 2 double-digit scorers for the Cards, Kiana Smith with 18, Haley Van Lith with 16. Emily Ingsler only had 4 points. However, she had 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 blocks. Look, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Well, she's 6'1", so, she's not like I wouldn't necessarily, call her a physically imposing, post presence on the defensive side of the ball, but she's very solid in terms of rim protection due to her athleticism, due to her shot blocking instincts, and her length at being at 6'1". I think she's one of the top 5 defensive players in the country. Granted, there are a lot of players that are very good on that side of the ball. One of those being Mikasa Robinson, but when you look at what Emily Ingsler is doing this season, I personally think it's credible. It's incredible, I should say. Right now, she's averaging 2.6 steals per game, 1.5 blocks per game, and 8.4 rebounds per game. Overall, I haven't really checked to see if any other players kind of match that stat sheet or averages more respectively. But I venture out and say that there's probably not that many. Emily Ingsler, like I mentioned, I feel like I say this every single time. It's like I'm under contract to say it when I mention Emily Ingsler, is that her impact goes way beyond the box score. Like, you can see she only had 4 points, but you see also that she doesn't need to score to affect the games a lot. She's very attentive as an on-ball defender. Her grasp of the team defense, not only, from a fundamental standpoint, but from what Jeff Walls and the coaching staff is trying to do with the Cardinal rotation. I think that, she's really bought into that identity that Jeff Walls is trying to preach in terms of, just the defensive intensity. And it's, it's a match made up in heaven, in terms of, this Cardinal team and Emily Ingsler coming into the fold. So ultimately, I would venture out and say you couldn't find me, 5 better overall defenders than Emily Ingsler in the college basketball realm right now. And like I keep saying, it's not the box score. I mean, it is the box score, but it's not just the box score because her ability to hedge ball handlers, in pick and roll situations, very solid on ball defense, especially out on the perimeter. Just overall great in transition defensively. So I have to give her props because even though she only had 4 points, she played very, very well. Olivia Cochran had 8 points. Chelsea Hall, not necessarily big on the stat sheet today. She was 2 for 6 with 4 points, and the Cardinals had 13 points from the bench, 7 from Alana Smith, 6 from Mikasa Robinson. Overall, a solid win for the Cards. A win is a win, like I say, especially against a team that you've already played once. So, a team that, possibly has a better chance of, scouting you a little better since they have a lot of film that they played you. They played you, so I mean they're going to know a little bit more about you. Since the Cardinals defeated the Boston College Eagles back on, I gotta find out what day that is. Back on, why can't I find the day? December 30th. Okay, I don't know why my mind was drawing a blank. But what I mean to say is Boston College went on a 4-game winning streak. They beat New Hampshire and then a 3-game ACC winning streak over Syracuse, Clemson, and Pittsburgh. 2 of those were double-digit victories. So Boston College sitting at 12-5 now. One of the programs in the ACC to where they're not a bottom feeder by any stretch. They're not an elite team in the top tier with Louisville and North Carolina State, but they are kind of in that middle tier in the sense to where if you don't play your best game or if you're slacking off, by all means, they have the makings of a team that can pull off an upset. I like, their energy on the court. They're very, very solid. Despite being 7th in the conference, I think that they're going to continue to rise up. They had Sewell and Schwartz combined for 29 points to be exact, and that was really kind of all it was for the Boston College offense. Shot 13.3%, so you saw that Louisville defense in full effect on Sunday afternoon, and that really shouldn't surprise you by any stretch because I feel like Louisville's perimeter defense is one of the marquee things that Jeff Walz incorporates with this team because for good shooting teams like that they'll play down the road, they do a good job of really making teams work and forcing you to, take some off-balance shots. The Boston College only shot 37.5% from the field, turned the ball over 24 times. Unfortunately for Louisville, kind of hard to take advantage of that when you've turned the ball over 21 times. So, carelessness of, ball security and stuff like that, I think hindered the Cardinals from going out and getting some, getting a more convincing victory, so to speak. But I will say that we will have the NC State preview up on tomorrow's episode. We have 2 guests for Wednesday and Thursday. So we will discuss the NC State preview ahead of the matchup on Thursday. But just heads up that will come tomorrow on tomorrow's episode. So digging into the final segment of the show, the weekly Monday mailbag segment will answer all of those questions here in just a second after we talk about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue our march to the playoffs and beyond. It remains your number one spot for all of the best sports wagering action for 2022. A new year brings forth a new updated desktop and mobile website. So sign up today and use the promo code LOCKEDON and receive your 50% welcome bonus from football, basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2022. It's the fastest and easiest way to wager on all of your favorite sports, and BetOnline is where the game starts. So, final segment of the show will be dedicated to the weekly mailbag segment. The first question on the docket for this episode is, do you think that the Louisville men's basketball team will make the NCAA tournament? I'm going to be honest. At this point, I don't. Does that mean they can't make it? I mean, it's not impossible. I mean, they still have, the ball is in their court. I mean, they could truly turn things around, but they would have to do that in a seismic way. It would have to be a drastic shift. And right now, it'd be different if they were losing games, in close fashion where they're playing really good. or they're playing really good opposition, but they're really not. I mean, the best team that they played so far is Florida State in conference, or Wake Forest, one of the two. They beat Wake. They haven't had really an ACC win by over 5 points. The 3 losses were Florida State by 9, NC State by double digits, and Pittsburgh by double digits. And Pittsburgh, probably the most unconvincing one yet for a team that is 7-10 now, and struggling to piece together some wins. I think Louisville. I forget where it was posted. I think Matt McGavick from Sports Illustrated, Cardinals Sports Illustrated. He posted the net rankings, and I don't know what exactly they were like. Louisville was like 112th in the net rankings. So, like I mentioned, the name of the game for Louisville in the ACC play was not accumulating quality wins, because there aren't many of the opportunities. It was avoiding bad losses, and right now they just picked up 2 and possibly 3, depending on how you view Florida State. It's going to depend on how they kind of are able to get going. So right now I don't think they do, because you would have to see a seismic shift, and right now it seems like the team's kind of regressing and going in the wrong direction. They would but I guess it's not impossible. I mean, you would have to really put it this way. For Louisville to make the tournament, there's 2 options. Number 1, they win the conference tournament, so they get an automatic bid. Number 2, I mean, they pretty much would have to win all but maybe one game in left in the month of January, and that one game would probably have to be to Duke. It couldn't be a bad loss. Although maybe a win against Duke could help your resume. You could lose to a team like North Carolina and then beat Duke, which might necessarily be better for you in the long run. But then you would have to. I mean, you can't lose double-digit losses for the men's basketball team right now. Would almost spell another NCAA tournament snub. And right now, I don't even think that they're necessarily on the bubble. I think that they're squarely out of the field at the moment. And, it's just kind of the byproduct of losing the past 3 games. So we'll kind of see how that goes. So the next question is, with Sidney Curry's big performance against the NC State Wolfpack last week, what is your outlook for him on the rest of the season? Well, I think that it kind of, that performance changes it a little bit. I always knew that the potential was there, but he showed that he has the opportunity to really, take over games in a lot of ways. My outlook for him is to be kind of I guess you could say kind of a spark plug, whether that be off the bench or, just a solid starter. I'm not sure that he's going to be consistently scoring in double digits every game, but I do think his confidence is going to get a little bit higher each and every time he steps foot on the court. So, for me, it's, I don't really know how to explain what my outlook is for him. I think it's just a solid contributor, because I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to come in and give you, the production that he just gave you against NC State. I just don't necessarily think that that's sustainable yet. Maybe it is next year, but right now, I think it was encouraging what we saw from him. But also at the same time, I want to be realistic. I don't want to, make it to where you're expecting too much from him, to where he's giving you good minutes, but you're like, he's not scoring 17 points and grabbing 12 rebounds, so he's not playing good. I don't want it to get to that point. So Sidney Curry right now is it's a pretty it's a pretty solid addition to the rotation right now. So final segment of the mailbag is, how do you feel collectively about the coaching hires that Scott Satterfield has made for the Louisville football program this offseason? Well, I don't want to get too much into this, because on Wednesday, when Jeremy Wallman is back on the show, we're going to break down each one of those hires and talk about our thoughts and if we like it or not. But ultimately, there's 2 ways to look at it. Number 1, it all matters. The only thing that matters is what you see on the field, right? That's kind of where we're at right now, and that's how it should be, though. I mean, you can't judge a hiring before the team even steps foot on the field. So that you can accept, but also from a strictly hypothetical, from a recruiting standpoint, Lance Taylor, Wes McGriff, the offense coordinator and co-defense coordinator respectively, both are pretty solid recruiters. I like what I have seen from them in terms of resume. They're very highly respected people in their respective fields. Deion Branch, bringing him back as the director of player development. I love that move. That might be the best move this guy Satterfield has made, and credit to Josh Hurd who was instrumental in bringing Branch in, bringing a Super Bowl champion in to help out with development. That is great, and then obviously Ben Souter is the new strength and conditioning coach. Like I said, I think I mentioned him on the last Mailbag Monday segment, and that is it's going to come down to the results. I like his energy. I like he played. He's a Kentucky native. He played football for Western Kentucky. And it's just going to be a matter of what we see on the field and the results we see on the field. I can't stop. Excuse me. I can't stop yawning for some reason. But I promise that it's not boring content or anything like that. It's just it'll be interesting to kind of see where how the results come from this, and I'm very excited to talk about this on Wednesday and break it down. So be sure to check out that segment with Jeremy Wall. Before we get out of here, a couple quick shots. First, for the Cardinal Sports Zone podcast, like I mentioned, a very, very crucial episode to listen to that was released yesterday. Check that out at cardinalsportszone.com. Also, the Locked On Bets podcast hosted by your boy Q with handicapping expert analysis from Lee Sterling. You can get that on the Odyssey app or wherever you like to get your podcast. On tomorrow's episode, we're going to talk about the key returnees that Scott Satterfield has coming back to the Louisville football program in 2022, and then we will give a full in-depth preview ahead of the top 5 between the Louisville Cardinals and the NC State Wolfpack women's basketball marquee matchup on Thursday evening. That preview will be on tomorrow's episode, so be sure to check that out. That's going to wrap up this Monday edition of the show. Everyone have a great start to your week, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.